Last night, I realized to my utter dismay that I was on the segment of the Colombo Bureau project, which requires a win in the Tier 6 Italian battleship Caracciolo. I have no idea how long I was sitting on that segment without playing this ship. It might have actually been a week or more. But I decided to take it out into standard battle in hopes that I could achieve victory. And I did. Spoiler alert for the outcome of this match. Apologies there, but I didn't take it into AI, as I could have and guarantee to win. I like to take these ships when the Bureau requires it into standard because, of course, there's a chance I could get a good game and maybe feature a ship on YouTube that I haven't talked about in a long time. So here we go with the Caracciolo. Now, I've said recently that I don't really like the Italian battleships as a general rule, and when I made that statement, I was thinking about pretty much every Italian battleship except the Lepanto and the Colombo, this one included. But now, after the results of this match, I don't know. I might have to reevaluate that opinion because we do an awful lot of work in this thing before this match ends. And we're bottom tier, too. We're going to be facing off against a couple tier 7 battleships, actually, including a Vladivostok, which is no small threat. But I think I want to walk you through my thought process as I was playing this match because it could be instructive. I think we're going to find a lot of pretty good battleship positioning fundamentals here. So we spawned in the center, which means we don't really want to push right into the center Bravo cap for the same reason I talked about yesterday in that video with the cruiser. You push right into the Bravo cap 2 minutes into the game, well, you're going to get crossfired by either flank. So we're coming over here between Bravo and Alpha to try to help out our teammates on this side, and our first real salvo of the game nearly kills the enemy New Orleans. He's finished off by one of our teammates. Boise there behind the island is threatening to come out the other side. He's under pressure from our teammates here, and I don't really think he's paying attention to the map. I am, of course, spotted, so he should know I'm here, but he does elect to come out broadside. There's a destroyer right in front of him, too. And I know I always say shoot at the destroyer when it's spotted, but that's not always a hard and fast rule, especially if you've got a cruiser right next to it that you can take out in a single salvo. So there goes the Boise for our first kill of the game, and for some reason, the Benson decides he's going to open up at us with his main battery. He starts attracting fire from some of my teammates, and this decision I find a little bit inexplicable. Maybe the guy's a fan or something, but he decides, that's not a good idea. Silences the guns. Hopefully he's going to go dark here in a second for his sake. But we do get a decent hit on him for about 3,300 damage, which is kind of devastating for a Tier 6 destroyer. He does go dark, though. He's in the Alpha cap, and he's flipping it. So we know we've got a destroyer directly in front of our face. There's a Vladivostok out there. There's a Kansas somewhere off to the right. And we'd like to maybe push in a little bit to try to deal with the Vladivostok. I feel like the Italian battleships in general are designed to be more brawlers. I mean, they've got a heavy armor scheme. They have more base heals than the typical battleship. They seem to be designed with pushing in mind. So oftentimes that's my goal when I'm playing them. But of course we can't really push in to brawl with other battleships when there's a destroyer right in front of us. Now, previously we were unspotted because the Benson is laying a smoke screen, and he was concealed inside of it, but it looks like he's getting out of it intermittently. And he had us spotted for a second. There he is, not sure exactly how he's been revealed. There's no radar around here. But he has succeeded in flipping the Alpha cap. He's coming out from behind that island, inexplicably spotted. Our shells completely miss, which is one of the reasons I don't especially enjoy the Italian battleships. The salvos, when they suffer from dispersion like that, are awful. But, that shot against the New Orleans, when they hit, they can do pretty amazing things. In any case, Benson is dark again. We've deployed our smoke screen unnecessarily, I think. I think the reason I deployed it was because I was spotted briefly and I was worried about the Kansas shooting at my broadside. But both the Kansas and Vladivostok are preoccupied with the friendly battleship and the friendly cruiser that are currently sort of patrolling the map border there to the east of Alpha. Vladivostok does shoot back at us after we citadel him from like 14 kilometers, but it's HE, so the results aren't great. He does get a fire. We're not going to DCP that because there's no reason. We're still unspotted, and, well, there's no threat of anybody shooting at us now. But we don't know exactly where the Benson is. Scratch that. We do. He's just been spotted. He's still behind that little rock there. Our friendly destroyer in the Bravo cap is pushing into him, and he's at a HP disadvantage, so we need to help him out. This time, the RNG gods are with us, and we're able to take out the Benson for our second kill of the game. Now that the Benson is dead, this opens up the game to us. We could not really have pushed in safely before, but there is no destroyer or torpedo threat on the enemy team, aside from maybe the last remaining friendly cruiser, whose position was last seen to the north of the Bravo cap. In fact, he's pointed at that cap, and it looks like he may enter it. In any case, him aside, we should be able to push in now, and both Vladivostok and Kansas are so far off to the right here that if I push in and turn to the left, I might actually be able to get into the cap, put myself behind this island directly in front of me, and actually flip the cap, which would be great for my XP and my team's chances of winning. Although, you know, it looks like we probably are going to win. The enemy team would have to do an awful lot of work to claw this one back. I paused there for a second to take note of my smoke firing penalty, because that smoke may in fact come in handy if we are going to make this push, especially if these two guys start to notice us. And the smoke firing penalty on this thing, if you didn't see that, was 9.8 kilometers by sea, which I regard as absolutely ridiculous since this is a battleship with 15-inch guns, but, you know, balancing, I guess. In any case, we're approaching the red alpha cap, and we notice Bravo is starting to turn red, which means there can only be one person inside of it, and that'll be the last remaining enemy cruiser. Again, we don't know the identity of this cruiser, but it's not going to stop us from continuing forward. Both Kansas and Vladivostok are still distracted by our teammates over there near the map border, one of whom, by the way, is an Algerie, and I don't know how he managed to survive this long. But speaking of cruisers, there's the Fiji, who probably thought he had the drop on me, but of course I saw the cap turning red, and I knew to expect a cruiser. Looks like he launched his torpedoes a little bit too early. One of our teammates takes him out. I guess he did get the other set off, but the aim was not particularly on target, so there's no threat of those hitting us. We have to pay attention, though, to the Vladivostok, and we have to be exceptionally careful. We're playing on the edge here as far as pushing in goes, because you notice we've got this Vlad and this Kansas to our right, and if you look on the minimap, there are two battleships to the left. If we go forward too far, we're going to be in between these two groups and caught in an impossible crossfire. Now, the Italian battleships, including Caracciolo, are pretty heavily armored, but their citadels are very exposed, much like the Russians, and you don't want to be giving broadside. In fact, against something like the Vladivostok, he does manage to get an awful lot of pens into us. It's partially because the upper part of this bow armor is 25 millimeters, which he can overmatch. Although we do have a pretty robust icebreaker, so he probably can't citadel us through the bow. We deploy our smoke screen and go dark, which is good. We don't want to take this sustained focus fire from the Vlad, and this position, I think, is untenable. If we were to continue to sit here bow tanking, Kansas has our broadside potentially. The other two battleships that are, well, they don't have our broadside, I suppose, but I think we would take way too much damage if we just sat there. So we use the unique gimmick of the Italian smoke screen to disengage a little bit from the Vladivostok and come into the center cap. Richelieu is giving our position broadside, so we're going to take a shot at him, of course. Results aren't going to be spectacular, but he's at full HP, so any little bit of damage helps. Alabama is nearly toast, so he's no credible threat. And once we continue forward a little bit, Richelieu is not going to be able to shoot at us. Kansas is tunnel-visioned on the Algerie and the other battleship over there, so he is also no threat. That means it's just a 1v1 duel versus the, I guess, rather overconfident Vladivostok, who decides to come around the island flat broadside to us, perhaps not knowing that his citadel is as easily accessible as ours, and we're able to tap it twice there. netting ourselves the high caliber medal and 125,000 damage done. Vladivostok, I think, is rethinking his life choices. He's barely got any HP left, and, well, angling can be a good thing when you're playing a battleship versus another one, so he's sort of turned away. He's got his armor angled to us now after he lost all his HP. We've got our armor angled to him, too, so we mitigate the incoming damage. But you can see our AP is not super great, especially with the accuracy against that kind of angle. So we're just going to have to continue forward a little bit here. If we put this island between ourselves and the Vlad, we should be able to go dark, and then we can turn back in and start pushing toward him. There we go. We go dark. We're going to turn to starboard, and maybe we'll even be able to take out this Vladivostok. It looked like he was on fire, but he's used his DCP. He goes dark momentarily, and there he is still broadside to our position, so that's going to be it for the Vladivostok, and there is our third kill of the game. That just leaves Richelieu and Kansas left, so there is actually Kraken potential here. But the question is, what do we do? I was initially thinking, let's go after the Kansas. He's on very low HP. We can probably secure that kill. But there's Richelieu pushing forward, still giving broadside to our position. And, you know, he's in a duel with our ships that have occupied the Alpha Cap for the entirety of this game. Notice, by the way, that I've been sailing all the way across the map everywhere, just keeping the positions of both the blue and the red teams in mind. Meanwhile, most of the battleships in this game play completely stationary, going only forwards or backwards, and perhaps not paying attention to the map too much. There's one bit of advice that you should take from this battle. It's pay attention to the map. Had we not been paying attention to the map during this battle, we wouldn't have gotten these opportunities. There goes Richelieu, fourth kill of the game. Kraken time, perhaps. The Kansas, though, 20 kilometers away. He's actually having a duel with the Tier 6 Algerie, who, I want to remind you, has been at that map border for the entirety of this game, and he is a Tier 6 French cruiser. He's not got a lot of armor. He's been fighting a Kansas. He's got no HP left, but he's still alive, which, honestly, that's pretty impressive to fight a Kansas for the entire almost 15 minutes of a game and still survive. I don't even think this salvo from the Kansas is going to take him out. He's actually going to live. We win the game. No chance really to get a Kraken. Too far ahead on points, so we win out on points, but Caracciolo, I mean, perhaps a pretty good Tier 6 battleship. This was, you know, bottom tier game. We end with 2,900 XP and 4 kills. I would call that a carry, although, you know, some of our teammates, 3 of them actually got over 2K base XP, so they did some good work as well. This was just a pretty good team overall, despite the fact that I just don't think battleships look at the minimap enough, and I don't think they're very creative in their positioning. But I think this was a good example of some creative positioning in a battleship. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.